Hello, all you freedom-loving people. President Trump spoke at the UN General Assembly and blasted the globalist agenda of mass migration, and a new treatment for autism was announced when the link between autism and the use of Tylenol was made. Okay, let's get into it. Today in New York, President Trump took to the stage at the UN General Assembly for his first address to the body since 2020. President Trump greeted foreign leaders with jokes about the teleprompter.
Very much appreciated. And I don't mind making this speech without a teleprompter, because the teleprompter is not working. I feel very happy to be up here with you nevertheless, and that way you speak more from the heart. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble. Hello, Madam First Lady. Thank you very much for being here.
The teleprompter then began functioning properly, and President Trump went on to say that he built the greatest economy in history of the world during his first term, and that he's doing the same thing again in his second term. He also said that manufacturing is booming, and that wages are rising at the fastest pace in more than 60 years. President Trump also touted himself for ending 7 wars and with little to no help from the international body.
Had to do these things instead of the United Nations doing them. And sadly, in all cases, the United Nations did not even try to help in any of them. I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen, but she's in great shape. We're both in good shape, we both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Thank you very much. And by the way, it's working now. It just went on. Thank you. I think I should just do it the other way. It's easier. Thank you very much. I didn't think of it at the time because I was too busy working to save millions of lives. That is the saving and stopping of these wars. But later I realized that the United Nations wasn't there for us. They weren't there. I thought of it really after the fact, not during these negotiations, which were not easy. That being the case, what is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential. I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential, but it's not even coming close to living up to that potential. For the most part, at least for now, all they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war.
Meanwhile, President Trump noted that a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine remains elusive. He also expressed frustration that many NATO allies remain economically tied to Russia.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves.
President Trump also asked world leaders to stop developing biological and nuclear weapons.
As we seek to reduce the threat of dangerous weapons today, I'm also calling on every nation to join us in ending the development of biological weapons once and for all. And biological is terrible, and nuclear is even beyond, and we include nuclear in that. We want to have a cessation of the development of nuclear weapons. We know, and I get to view it all the time. Sir, would you like to see? And I look at weapons that are so powerful that We just can't ever use them. If we ever use them, the world literally might come to an end. There would be no United Nations to be talking about. There would be no nothing.
Also, President Trump urged countries to take a strict stance on illegal immigration, and he called out the United Nations for funding an assault on Western countries by offering cash support, food, shelter, and other assistance to migrants. He said that Europe is in serious trouble.
Europe is in serious trouble. They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe. Nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it. And I have to say, I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. So changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law. But you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained.
President Trump also said that the globalist migration agenda has resulted in the mass trafficking of children across international borders.
The previous administration also lost nearly 300,000 children. Think of that. They lost more than 300,000 children, little children, who were trafficked into the United States on the Biden watch, many of whom have been raped, exploited, and abused, and sold. Sold. Nobody talks about that. The fake news doesn't write about it. With many others, young children who are missing or dead. And we found a lot of these children, and we're sending them back, and we've been sending them back to their parents. Any system that results in the mass trafficking of children is inherently evil. Yet that is exactly what the globalist migration agenda has done, and it's what it's all about.
President Trump ended his comments at the United Nations saying that immigration and the soaring cost of green, renewable energy are destroying the free world.
Electric costs are so high. So while the U.S. has approximately 1,300 heat-related deaths annually, that's a lot, Europe loses more than 175,000 people to heat deaths each year because the costs are so expensive you can't turn on an air conditioner. What is that all about? That's not Europe. That's not the Europe that I love and know. All in the name of pretending to stop the global warming hoax. The entire globalist concept of asking successful industrialized nations to inflict pain on themselves and radically disrupt their entire societies must be rejected completely and totally, and it must be immediate. Every leader in this beautiful hall today represents a rich culture, a noble history, and a proud heritage that makes each nation majestic and unique, unlike anything else in human history or any other place on the face of the earth. From London to Lima, from Rome to Athens, from Paris to Seoul, from Cairo to Tokyo and Amsterdam to right here in New York City, we stand on the shoulders of the leaders and legends, generals and giants, heroes and titans who won and built our beloved nations, all of our nations, with their own courage, strength, spirit, and skill. Our ancestors climbed mountains, conquered oceans, crossed deserts, and trekked over wide open plains. They charged into thunderous battles, plunged into grave dangers, and they were soldiers and farmers and workers and warriors and explorers and patriots. They built towns into cities, tribes into kingdoms, ideas into industries, and small islands into mighty empires. You're a part of all of that. They were champions for their people who never gave up and who never, ever gave in.
Yesterday, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and other health officials announced that acetaminophen, which is the active ingredient in Tylenol, may be associated with autism. Officials said that Tylenol use in pregnancy is possibly associated with autism, and pregnant women should generally not take the drug unless they have serious fevers.
Tylenol during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary.
On the same day, the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, notified doctors that using acetaminophen during pregnancy may be associated with an increased risk of neurological conditions. The FDA later told doctors that an association between acetaminophen and autism has been described in many studies. The notice said that doctors should consider minimizing acetaminophen use during pregnancy for routine low-grade fevers. But the notice described acetaminophen as the safest over-the-counter option in pregnancy for fevers. The FDA is also initiating a labeling change for acetaminophen to provide updated information about the link between acetaminophen and autism. Acetaminophen is also available in generic drugs, not just Tylenol. About 60% of pregnant women are estimated to use acetaminophen. In response to the statement by health officials, a spokesperson for Kenvue, the parent company of Tylenol's manufacturer, said that we believe independent sound science clearly shows that taking acetaminophen does not cause autism. We strongly disagree with any suggestion otherwise and are deeply concerned with the health risks this poses for expecting mothers. Multiple studies have found that acetaminophen use during pregnancy can increase the risk of autism, including a review of 46 prior studies that was published recently in August. Dr. Didier Prada of the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, who was one of the researchers, said in a statement when the review was released, "Our findings show that higher quality studies are more likely to show a link between prenatal acetaminophen exposure and increased risk of autism and ADHD." So is there a treatment for autism? Yesterday, health officials said that enough evidence suggests that a medication called leucovorin, also known as prescription folinic acid, can help treat autism. Leucovorin is approved for several uses, including treating colorectal cancer. Folinic acid and folic acid are forms of vitamin B9. People without enough folic acid or folinic acid are deficient in folate, which is required for body functions such as producing red blood cells. Some research has concluded that autistic children have high levels of folate receptor autoantibodies, which interfere with the transport of folate or vitamin B9 in the body. The Autism Science Foundation says that research on folinic acid and autism is still in its early days, and more research is needed before drawing any firm conclusions. Yesterday, the nonprofit organization Turning Point USA held its first campus event since the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The new event that was held at the University of Minnesota was scheduled before the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and it proceeded as it was planned just a day after the massive memorial service that was held at State Farm Stadium in Arizona on Sunday. Tens of thousands of people gathered for the memorial event, which featured speeches from Charlie Kirk's wife, Erica Kirk, President Trump, top cabinet members, and those who knew and worked with Charlie Kirk the closest. Andrew Goulet, who is the executive producer of the Charlie Kirk Show, told Jesse Waters that geotagging detected more than 277,000 devices at the memorial event.
Break a little bit of news on your program, Jesse. Our partners that do sort of geotagging with devices, they told us that they tracked over 277,000 devices in the vicinity of State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. Wow. 277,000. So that just gives you an idea of the scale of humanity out there. But I just want to give a hat tip and a major kudos to our team that pulled this off. They did an event that should have taken 6 months to plan in about 6 days. And it is a absolute testament to the leadership of Charlie Kirk and the type of people he surrounded himself with and the type of people that are still in this organization. They carry a piece of him with them, and they did the impossible, and they did it for Charlie. And it was amazing.
The crowd from all across the country was there to celebrate Charlie's life rather than to mourn his passing. At the memorial, Charlie Kirk was honored for the lives he touched, his commitment to his Christian faith, his passion for debating with anyone willing to engage, and his commitment to building Turning Point USA, which helped conservatives reach out to young people. Out of all the people who spoke, perhaps Erica Kirk was the most touching. During Erica's eulogy, she quoted scripture as she wiped tears from her eyes. She offered compassion and forgiveness to Tyler Robinson, the suspected assassin of Charlie Kirk.
Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do. That man, that young man, I forgive him.
Erica Kirk said, "I forgive him because it's what Christ did and what Charlie would do." She said Charlie Kirk was motivated by saving the lost boys of the West. She described them as the young men who feel like they have no direction, no purpose, no faith, and no reason to live. Erica called on Americans to counter hate with love, saying that responding with hate is never an appropriate answer. Erica also called on men and women to prioritize faith and family, and she highlighted how important both were to Charlie Kirk. She said that a loving, supportive marriage was a hallmark of Charlie's life and that he wanted to serve as a role model for others. Erica also said that while Charlie died far too early, he was also ready to die.
While Charlie died far too early, he was also ready to die. There was nothing he was putting off. There was nothing that was too hard or too painful or nothing that he just felt like he didn't want to do it. He left this world without regrets. He did 100% of what he could every day.
During his remarks, President Trump said that Charlie will live forever.
None of us will ever forget Charlie Kirk, and neither now will history. Because while Charlie has been reunited with his Creator in heaven, his voice on earth will echo through the generations, and his name will live forever in the eternal chronicle of America's greatest patriots. He will live forever.
President Trump also noted that Charlie had faced death threats for years, yet never backed down despite knowing the risks.
Virtually every day for years before he was murdered, Charlie received these horrible death threats. He knew the risks, but he and I shared a certain motto: never back down and never ever surrender. Just don't surrender, never back down. He believed in it so strongly. So strongly. And he's right. He's totally right.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth also said that Charlie waged a spiritual war through his organization.
But over time, he realized, like so many of us have, that this is not a political war. It's not even a cultural war. It's a spiritual war. Faith and family first. There is a God, and as Charlie would say, it is not us.
And Tucker Carlson said that Charlie's Christian faith guided his core message.
But the main thing about Charlie and his message, he was bringing the gospel to the country. He was doing the thing that the people in charge hate most, which is calling for them to repent. Is that change begins, the only change that matters, when we repent of our sins. Me. A recognition that the real problem is me and how fallen I am. And that was the reason that Charlie was fearless, at all times, truly fearless to his last moment. He was unafraid, he was not defensive, and there was no hate in his heart.
Not only the retention of faith was at the event, but it was also a demonstration of unity and revival. The event revealed a sense of hope for the future and a call to action for everyone to go out into their communities. It also called for everyone to reestablish peaceful dialogue with each other for the next generation and for the country. ABC announced on Monday that Jimmy Kimmel Live will resume airing on Tuesday. However, Sinclair, which operates over 35 ABC affiliate stations nationwide, stated that it will not immediately resume airing Jimmy Kimmel Live and will instead replace it with news programs. Kimmel's late night show was pulled off the air entirely last Wednesday due to his improper comments about Charlie Kirk and his alleged assassin. Kimmel reportedly told executives that he would not apologize for his remarks. Kimmel had planned to directly address the backlash during his Wednesday night show. Kimmel planned a monologue targeting the MAGA movement. But on Wednesday afternoon, FCC Chairman Brendan Carr appeared on Benny Johnson's podcast and threatened to revoke the licenses of ABC affiliates, escalating the situation significantly. For any broadcaster, nothing is more terrifying than facing an FCC fine or worse, the potential loss of a radio broadcasting license. The impact of the FCC warning quickly reverberated throughout the industry. Nexstar Media, one of the largest local television operators in the United States, announced that it will cease airing Kimmel's program for the foreseeable future, stating that his remarks about Charlie Kirk were offensive and insensitive at a critical moment in our national political discourse. Sinclair Broadcast Group subsequently announced that it would no longer air the program. Sinclair called on Kimmel to apologize to Charlie Kirk's family and to make a substantial personal donation to the political organization he founded, Turning Point USA. Ultimately, Disney CEO Bob Iger and Disney Entertainment co-chair Dana Walden decided to indefinitely suspend the show in an effort to protect both Charlie Kirk and the Disney brand, preventing the controversy from escalating further. However, over 400 movie, television, and stage stars, along with comedians, directors, and screenwriters, have spoken out in his defense. Following Kimmel's suspension, Disney stock suffered a 5% loss. Additionally, reports indicated Disney faced a difficult choice between Kimmel and its multi-billion-dollar partnership with the NFL and ESPN. After careful consideration, Disney ultimately decided to reinstate Kimmel to the 11:35 p.m. primetime slot. On Monday, Disney tried to explain its decision-making regarding Kimmel's return. The Disney statement said, "Last Wednesday, we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country. It is a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive. We have spent the last days having thoughtful conversation with Jimmy, and after those conversations, we reached the decision to return the show on Tuesday." Reportedly, Kimmel is planning to address the controversy in his monologue on Tuesday night, but Sinclair will continue to keep the show off its ABC stations. Their statement said, "Beginning Tuesday night, Sinclair will be preempting Jimmy Kimmel Live across our ABC affiliate stations and replacing it with news programming. Discussions with ABC are ongoing as we evaluate the show's potential return." Sinclair said that it would not lift its suspension until after discussions with ABC. The world we live in appears to be becoming increasingly divided, but the death of Charlie Kirk has created a ripple effect, galvanizing a global conservative movement and Christian revival into a united front. And over the same weekend, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and Portugal joined over 100 other countries in announcing their recognition of the state of Palestine. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that the UK's move is intended to revive the hope of peace for the Palestinians and Israelis. Starmer said in a video message, "We recognize the state of Israel more than 75 years ago as a homeland for the Jewish people. Today, we join over 150 countries who recognize a Palestinian state also. He criticized Israel's ongoing bombardment and blockade of Gaza, calling the current situation utterly intolerable. Britain has been granted an international mandate over Palestine after World War I. Therefore, this decision is seen as carrying special historical significance. Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian Authority president, said that the UK's announcement was an important and necessary step toward achieving a just and lasting peace, and Canada's made a major shift in the country's foreign policy. It previously supported a two-state solution that would be achieved as part of a negotiated settlement between Israel and Palestinian leaders. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said on Sunday that possibility has steadily and gravely eroded. He said because the current Israeli government stated that there will be no Palestinian state, it is in this context that Canada recognizes the state of Palestine and offers our partnership in building the promise of a peaceful future for both the state of Palestine and the state of Israel. Carney also called on Hamas to release all hostages, to fully disarm, and to play no role in the future governance of Palestine. The Australian government similarly maintains that the war must be ended through political means. Australia Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Penny Wong, the Minister for Foreign Affairs and leader of the government in the Senate, said in a joint statement, Australia's recognition of Palestine today alongside Canada and the United Kingdom is part of a coordinated international effort to build new momentum for a two-state solution, starting with a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of the hostages taken in the atrocities of October 7, 2023. Later on Sunday, Portugal announced that it too had formally recognized a Palestinian state. Portuguese Foreign Minister Paulo Rangel simultaneously called for an immediate ceasefire. He stressed that Hamas cannot continue to control Gaza and demand the release of all hostages. French President Emmanuel Macron announced at the UN General Assembly on Monday that France recognizes the state of Palestine. He called it a historic commitment aimed at securing peace between Israelis and Palestinians. This is not surprising. As early as July, French President Emmanuel Macron was the prime mover, calling for countries to join France in announcing their recognition at the UN General Assembly. More countries are expected to join the list, recognizing a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly this week. Belgium, Luxembourg, and San Marino are among other governments planning to recognize a Palestinian state this week. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu blasted these countries for offering a prize to Hamas. Netanyahu said in a video statement, "I got a message to the same leaders who recognize a Palestinian state after the October 7th horrifying massacre. You reward terrorism. And I got another message, there will not be a Palestinian state." Israel's President Isaac Herzog added to this criticism, saying that the move will not help one Palestinian, it won't help free one hostage, and it will not help us reach any settlement between Israelis and Palestinians. As Israel's closest ally, the United States has consistently opposed recognizing Palestine. President Trump has explicitly opposed such recognition in the past. Burku Ozalik, a senior fellow for Middle East security at the Royal United Service Institute in London, told the Associated Press that unless the United States changes its stance, recognizing Palestine would be largely symbolic and unlikely to alter the realities on the battlefield. Recently, President Trump announced that the United States would charge companies $100,000 for each H-1B visa that is issued to a temporary foreign worker. Charges against H-1B visa holders started on September 21st, but the visa reform will not affect existing H-1B visa holders. The move appears to be aimed at increasing positions for American workers at companies that use H-1B employees. According to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, in 2025, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and Meta were in the top 5 companies petitioning for H-1B visas. Amazon recruited more than 10,000 H-1B applicants in 2025 alone. So the charge led to reactions. Companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, and Goldman Sachs reportedly issued memos over the weekend and called for their employees to return to the United States and not leave the country. Esther Crawford, the director of product management at Meta, criticized the move. Crawford wrote on X, "America's edge has always been that we attract smart, ambitious people from everywhere. High-skilled immigrants don't take from us, they build with us. Some of the best colleagues in my career have been H-1B holders chasing their own American dream." But Gary Cohn, who is the vice chair at IBM, praised the new system in an interview on CBS. Cohn cited the move as an effort to recruit more Americans in corporations across the country.
I actually think this is a good idea. If you understand the H-1B visa program in the United States, historically it has been a lottery system. So companies have turned in for these visas, and then the US government lotteries them off. If you're now telling a company, look, you need to spend $100,000 to get one of these visas, you're not just going to ask for a visa and put a name in the lottery, unless that is a highly skilled person who you need, who you cannot hire in the United States.
Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings also hailed the change as a great solution. Hastings wrote on X, "It will mean H-1B is used just for very high-value jobs, which will mean no lottery needed and more certainty for those jobs." India is one of the top recipient countries for H-1B visas. Approximately 73% of H-1B visas approved in 2023 were from India, and China accounted for 12% of 2023 approvals. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family because everybody deserves to know the truth.